moved into my apartment in Albany last winter. A charming, if slightly drafty, third-floor walk-up in an old Victorian house. It was just me, a futon that barely stayed inflated, and a new job at a local indie radio station, spinning obscure tracks late into the night. My life was, by all accounts, perfectly ordinary, pleasantly mundane, until the dreams started. The first one came a week in. I'd just fallen asleep, the city sounds outside fading to a gentle hum. In the dream, I was lying in my bed exactly as I was in reality. Same worn t-shirt, same rumpled sheets, same familiar glow from the street lamp outside my window. But something was wrong. The hallway outside my door, usually dark and quiet, wasn't empty. A man stood there. He was tall, unnaturally so, and utterly motionless, a silhouette against the slightly lighter gloom of the stairwell beyond. His face, it wasn't quite right. It looked smudged, indistinct, like a charcoal drawing left out in a relentless rain, all features blurred and distorted. He didn't move, didn't speak, didn't even seem to breathe. He just watched, his presence a heavy, suffocating weight. I felt an inexplicable dread, a primal fear that had nothing to do with logic. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed was the chill in the air, despite the heat being on. And then I saw it. My bedroom door was wide open, a gaping maw into the dark hallway. I distinctly remembered locking it, a habit born of living alone. I chalked it up to sleepwalking, a subconscious anxiety manifesting. I got up, a shiver running down my spine, locked the door with an extra click, and tried to convince myself it was nothing. I went back to sleep, but the sense of unease clung to me like a damp sheet. But the dreams came every night after that. Always the same man, always standing in the same spot just outside my door. Each time he was closer, not walking, not shuffling, just appearing. One night, he was a few feet inside the threshold. The next, he was by the small dresser. By the fifth night, he was right inside my room, standing at the foot of my futon. I could feel his presence, a tangible coldness in the air, and even in the dream, I swore I could feel his breath, cold and steady, against my cheek, like a winter gust through an open window. I woke up drenched in sweat, my heart hammering against my ribs, the sound almost deafening in the silence of my room. And there it was again, my door swinging slowly on its hinges as if pushed gently open by an unseen hand. The futon was pushed slightly away from the wall. Panic began to set in. I installed a heavy-duty deadbolt that afternoon, the kind that took 2 turns to lock, reinforced with a steel plate. I even jammed a chair under the doorknob. It didn't help. The dreams continued, the man's silent vigil and inescapable torment. I started to dread sleep, to fight it, but exhaustion always won. I'd fall into a fitful slumber and he would be there waiting. One particularly terrifying night, in the dream he was so close I could almost reach out and touch his blurred face. His head tilted infinitesimally, and I tried to scream to shout him away, but my voice came out garbled, a choked, desperate sound like static on a dying radio. And then he leaned in, his indistinct features blurring further as he approached, and a voice, a low, rasping whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, filled my mind. "You've let me in." I jolted awake, a guttural cry tearing from my throat. The room was bathed in the dim light of dawn, but something was terribly, horrifyingly wrong. My mirror, a full-length one leaning against the wall opposite my bed, was shattered from the inside. Not just cracked, but exploded outwards, jagged glass pieces scattered across the floor like cruel, sparkling teeth. There was no way it could have happened naturally. No impact, no vibration. It looked like something had punched its way out of the reflection. The air was frigid, even colder than usual, and a faint metallic scent like old blood and ozone lingered. I didn't even pack properly. I threw essential clothes into a duffel bag, left the shattered mirror, left the futon, left everything. I called my landlord from a diner down the street, told him I was breaking my lease, no questions asked. I drove straight to my sister's place 3 states away and haven't looked back. But something's followed me. Every now and then, just as I'm falling asleep, on the very edge of consciousness, I hear him breathing, a slow, deliberate intake and exhale, just behind the door, no matter where I am. A constant chilling reminder that I indeed somehow let him in. My daughter, Lily, died 2 years ago. It feels like yesterday, and yet an eternity has passed since her laughter filled our home. She was hit by a drunk driver on her walk home from school. She was only 10. The world for me stopped turning that day. My husband left. Friends faded away, unsure how to comfort a grief so absolute. It was just me alone in a house that once echoed with her joy, now filled with a crushing silence. Grief is a strange and cruel companion. It twists everything, warps perception. Some nights I dream of her, and those dreams were the only solace I found. We'd be in the kitchen, baking her favorite chocolate chip cookies, flour dusting our noses, just like nothing ever happened. We'd be in the park, pushing her on the swing, her bright red shoes kicking at the sky. They were so vivid, so real, I could almost smell her sweet, familiar scent. But even in those moments of fleeting peace, I noticed things were off. In the dreams, her eyes were always too wide, a startling, unnerving intensity that never quite fit her innocent face. Her smile stretched a little too far, a fixed, almost painted grin, and she never blinked, never once. It was unsettling, but I convinced myself it was just the way my mind was coping, a slight distortion of memory. Still, I welcomed them. Even if it wasn't real, even if it was just a phantom echo, I just wanted to see her, to feel her close again. I craved those dreams, clung to them even with their subtle wrongness. They were the only time I felt truly connected to her. Then things changed. The dreams became less comforting, more insistent. One night we were in her bedroom, a place I rarely entered in waking life, still preserved as she left it. She was sitting on her bed, clutching her favorite worn teddy bear. She looked up at me, her wide, unblinking eyes fixed on mine, and her voice, usually so melodic, was thin, reedy, like a whisper carried on a distant wind. "Why don't you let me come home, Mommy?" she asked. My heart ached. I told her she already was home, that she was always in my heart, always with me. Her expression darkened then, the uncanny smile twisting into something almost angry. "No, you're keeping me out." I woke up with a gasp, the words still echoing in my ears. The house was freezing, unconnected. My breath plumed in the air. I looked around, bewildered. Then slowly, fearfully, my gaze traveled to the windows. All of them, every single window in my house was wide open, even the ones I had nailed shut years ago after a failed attempt at a break-in. The latches were undone. The sashes pushed all the way up. The temperature inside had dropped at least 20 degrees, a chilling, unnatural cold that seemed to emanate from the very walls. I raced around, slamming them shut, my hands trembling. Over the next week, the unsettling occurrences escalated. I found things moved around the house, small, intimate objects that only Lily would have touched. Her worn ballet slippers, which I kept in a box in the attic, were neatly placed on the hall table. A crayon drawing of our family, crumpled and faded, appeared on my pillow. Toys she hadn't touched in years, a chipped porcelain doll, a faded stuffed rabbit appeared in the hallway, often facing my bedroom door. And then the mirror. Every morning after a long, restless night, I would find her handwriting, unmistakable in its childish scrawl, showing up in the fog on the bathroom mirror. "Let me in." Sometimes it would be "open the door," other times simply "home." I started to dread sleeping, to fight it with every fiber of my being. I drank endless cups of coffee, watched television until my eyes burned, took long, cold showers. But exhaustion eventually won. My body would give out and I would collapse into a fitful, shallow sleep. In the final, most terrifying dream, she was sitting at the foot of my bed, her wide, unblinking eyes staring directly into mine. Her smile was gone, replaced by an expression of desperate, profound sorrow. The air around her shimmered almost like heat haze, and the room was filled with the faint, sweet scent of lilies, her namesake flower. Her voice, though still thin, was clearer now, more urgent. "I don't want to be out there anymore, Mommy," she whispered, her spectral hand reaching out, almost touching my arm. "It's cold. It's lonely. You have to say it. You have to invite me in." A profound weariness had settled over me, a bone-deep exhaustion that transcended physical fatigue. My mind, ravaged by grief and fear, was too tired to resist. I don't know why. I don't know what possessed me in that half-waking, half-dreaming state. But I said yes. I whispered the word, a quiet, desperate plea for peace. The next morning, the house felt different. Quieter. Calmer almost. I found a photo of Lily on my nightstand that I hadn't seen in years. It was an old school picture taken when she was 8. Only this time she looked older. like she had aged 2 years since the accident, her hair a little longer, her face a little more mature. She was smiling, her eyes bright, and there was no unsettling wideness, no fixed, unnatural grin. It looked like her, exactly like her. I hear her now sometimes, singing in her room, the door always ajar. The same lullaby she used to sing. It's her voice, her distinct, sweet voice. But it's not my daughter. Not anymore. I've seen glimpses of her flitting through the hall, a shadow in the corner of my eye, and sometimes at night, when the house is dark and silent, I hear a soft rustling sound from her room, as if someone is turning the pages of a book. I try to convince myself it's my imagination, a comfort created by my shattered mind, but I know, deep down, it's not. I invited something in, and now it calls this place home. I'm a sleep technician. It's a cruel irony, isn't it? My entire professional life revolves around studying sleep, monitoring brainwaves, and yet I've struggled with chronic insomnia for years. It's a silent, gnawing affliction that makes every day feel like moving through thick mud. So when the opportunity arose to volunteer for a new study, testing a revolutionary sleep chamber, an isolation tank designed to induce deep lucid dreams, I jumped at it. It was a cutting-edge prototype built for absolute sensory deprivation. No light, no sound, no tactile sensation. Just me and my own mind floating in near body temperature saline, a chance, I hoped, to finally achieve truly restorative sleep, to escape the relentless hum of my own wakefulness. I remember the exact moment I slipped under, the feeling of the warm water embracing me, the last whisper of air leaving my lungs as the hatch sealed. My body floated, weightless, a profound sense of calm washing over me. The silence was absolute, a perfect velvet blackness. But then there was sound, not a sound from the tank itself, but from within my head, or perhaps from somewhere beyond. A low, pulsing static, like a long-dead radio station trying to tune in, growing steadily louder. And then I saw a room. It wasn't the tank. It wasn't a dream in the traditional sense, not a narrative born of my memories or desires. It was somewhere else entirely. The walls were concrete, rough and uneven, gleaming faintly as if perpetually damp. They seemed to breathe a subtle expansion and contraction that made the air feel heavy, oppressive. There were no doors, no windows, no visible means of escape, just this oppressive, featureless cube. And in one corner, perched on a cracked, overturned crate, was an old cathode ray television set. Its screen flickered with broken images, a distorted kaleidoscope of gray and white, dominated by the incessant buzzing static that was now screaming in my ears. I tried to wake up. But when something reaches through the veil, when the flimsy barrier between our consciousness and something else dissolves, what happens then? What happens when sleep, once a cherished refuge, is no longer your sanctuary, but a gateway to a horror you can never truly escape? If you've ever had a dream that felt too real, a nightmare that clung to you long after you woke, leaving an indelible mark, ask yourself, what if it wasn't a dream at all? What if in those moments of vulnerability, you opened a door to something that refused to stay confined to the realm of nightmares?